I stood up in court to defend a homeless veteran, and the judge charged me with obstructing justice and had me detained for 8 hours. But I didn't argue. I didn't beg. Do you know why? Because that judge was my own daughter. She thought I was just a powerless old man who would quietly accept defeat. She had no idea that just one day later, she would receive a phone call from a powerful woman saying, "Do you know who you just had arrested?" When the truth was finally revealed, everything changed, and the people who laughed at me would soon regret it. I'm deeply grateful you're here with me today. Before we begin, I'd love to know, where are you listening from? Drop your city or country in the comments. It helps us connect as a community. Hit subscribe if you want more stories like this one. Please note, this narrative blends imagination with experience for educational and entertainment value. Any similarities to specific names or places are unintentional, but the lessons I'm sharing, those can genuinely help you navigate your own journey. They say the law is the child of reason born from logic and necessity, raised to protect the weak from the strong. I used to believe that. 22 years ago, I helped write the very statutes that built this system clause by careful clause, believing I was constructing a fortress for the powerless. Now I sit on a hard wooden bench at the back of courtroom 4B in Hartford County Courthouse, wearing a second-hand Goodwill windbreaker that smells faintly of someone else's cigarettes, watching my daughter wield those same laws like a bludgeon. Nobody looks at me. That is intentional. The frayed denim jeans, the scuffed work boots with one sole peeling loose the gray stubble I have not bothered to shave in 3 days, all of it renders me invisible in the way only poverty can. Bailiffs glance past me. Court staff shuffle papers without meeting my eyes. Good. Invisibility is a tool, and I have learned over 2 decades how to use it. The courtroom itself has not changed much since I last stood here as counsel, back when my name still appeared on federal briefs and law review articles. The same brutalist concrete walls poured in the 1970s. The same fluorescent lights humming overhead, one of them flickering in a rhythm that makes my left eye twitch. The air conditioning broke sometime last summer and was never repaired, leaving the October heat to press down on everyone like a damp towel. The gallery is half full this morning. Tired families clutch paperwork they do not fully understand. Public defenders lean against the bar with the weary posture of people who have stopped expecting victories. At the prosecution table, a young woman with a blonde ponytail arranges her files with the precision of someone trying to prove something. Then there is Vivian. She sits elevated behind the bench, exactly 3 feet higher than everyone else, a distance designed into the architecture to convey authority. I have not seen her in 22 years, not since she was 10 years old, and I kissed her forehead before leaving for what I told her would be a short trip. She has her mother's dark hair pulled into a severe bun that must give her headaches by afternoon. Her face has sharpened with age, beautiful, in the way a knife is beautiful, all clean lines and edges. The judicial robe she wears is custom-tailored, probably wool sitting on her shoulders, like armor. Her voice carries across the courtroom without effort, clipped and decisive. She does not raise it. She does not need to. Every syllable lands with the weight of finality consonants, snapping shut like locks. There is no warmth in that voice, no curiosity, no space for ambiguity or human complication. I watch her hands as she makes notes on the file before her. 3 taps of the pen against the edge of the paper. A pause. 2 more taps. It is a rhythm I taught her when she was 7 years old, practicing her multiplication tables at the kitchen table. The memory hits me like a fist to the sternum. She does not remember where that habit came from. I do. The bailiff calls the next case. A woman rises from the front row, clutching a thin folder to her chest. She wears nurse's scrubs patterned with cartoon bears. Her name is Keisha Williams. She's 35 years old, a single mother working double shifts at St. Francis Hospital. 2 weeks ago, she left her 8-year-old daughter alone for 15 minutes to run to the pharmacy because the girl had a fever. A neighbor called the police. Now she stands before my daughter flanked by a public defender who looks barely old enough to rent a car. Vivian does not look up from her notes as the charges are read. Child neglect under Connecticut General Statute 5321, a law I helped draft 23 years ago, back when I still believed the system could be calibrated finely enough to distinguish between cruelty and desperation. I wrote exceptions into that statute, provisions for economic hardship for emergency circumstances. Vivian recites only the penalty clause. The public defender stammers through an explanation. Single mother, essential worker, no prior record. The child was never in danger. It was 15 minutes. Vivian cuts him off with a single raised hand. Her voice does not change, but something in it makes the young lawyer go silent mid-sentence. Counsel, the statute is clear. A child under the age of 12 may not be left unsupervised in circumstances that present an unreasonable risk. The defendant left her daughter alone in an apartment building with no working smoke detectors. The duration is irrelevant. The young defender tries again. Your Honor, if I may, you may not. Vivian's gaze finally lifts from the file, settling on Keisha Williams with clinical detachment. Ms. Williams, you are sentenced to 6 months, suspended incarceration, 18 months, probation, mandatory parenting classes, and I am referring this matter to the Department of Children and Families for evaluation of your fitness to retain custody. Keisha Williams makes a sound that is not quite a word. Her knees buckle. The public defender grabs her elbow to keep her upright. In the gallery, someone starts to cry. I feel the old rage rising, the kind that used to keep me awake at night when I was younger, and still thought anger could be converted directly into justice. I wrote that law with nuance. Vivian has stripped away every safeguard, every human consideration, leaving only the punitive skeleton. This has to end today. The bailiff calls 3 more cases. Each one follows the same pattern. A defendant too poor to afford adequate representation. A set of circumstances where mercy would cost nothing and cruelty will compound across years. Vivian dispenses verdicts with the efficiency of an assembly line, each ruling technically defensible under the letter of the law and morally indefensible under any understanding of its spirit. Then the clerk reads the next name. Michael Crawford. A homeless veteran 60 years old arrested for trespassing after he tried to sleep in the loading dock behind a grocery store. His case remains on the docket, though he died 3 months ago during a police wellness check. No one bothered to update the records. I stand, not as Edmund Penhaligon, Shadow Commissioner Emeritus of the Federal Judicial Ethics Panel, not as the man who spent decades constructing the theoretical framework that judges like my daughter are supposed to operate within. Not as a father, though that identity sits in my chest like a stone. I stand as a nobody, as exactly the kind of person my daughter has learned to see through the way the wealthy learn not to notice the people who clean their offices or deliver their meals. The chair scrapes against the floor. A few heads turn. The security guard looks up from his phone. Vivian's gaze sweeps past me without recognition, already moving to the next case. I take a step forward. Mike Crawford's name echoes through the humid air, bouncing off those concrete walls. The bailiff reads the charges without inflection. Unlawful camping, trespassing on municipal property, failure to disperse when ordered by law enforcement. The legal translation of sleeping on a bench in Charter Oak Park because you have nowhere else to go. He shuffles forward when the bailiff gestures a man in his late 50s wearing fatigues that probably fit him 40 years ago in Vietnam. His hands shake with the particular tremor that comes from PTSD and too many cold nights. No attorney stands beside him. No family sits in the gallery behind him. The prosecutor barely glances up from her phone. Vivian opens the file with the same mechanical efficiency she brought to Keisha Williams to the 3 cases before that. I can see her preparing to recite the statute, assign the penalty, move on to the next folder. Another invisible person rendered a little more invisible by the machinery of justice. I have watched her destroy 3 lives this morning. I will not let her destroy a fourth. My voice cuts through the courtroom before she can speak. Clear, steady. Loud enough to carry, but not loud enough to be mistaken for shouting. Your Honor, I would like to speak on behalf of the defendant. Every head in the gallery turns. The court clerk looks up from her computer. Vivian's gaze sweeps toward me, and for the first time today, she actually sees me. Her eyes narrow slightly, taking in the frayed jacket, the gray stubble, the posture of someone who has spent too many nights on surfaces not designed for sleeping. The look she gives me is the look you might give a stray dog that has wandered into a restaurant. Sir, you are not counsel of record in this matter. Her tone is the verbal equivalent of a door closing. Please sit down. I do not sit down. The bailiff moves toward me, one hand dropping to his belt. I speak again before he reaches me, my voice taking on the cadence I learned in law school 40 years ago. Connecticut General Statute, Title VII, Section 4 provides specific exemptions for individuals experiencing housing insecurity when no credible threat to public safety exists. With respect, Your Honor, this court needs to hear the full text of the law, not merely the portions convenient for prosecution. Vivian goes very still. The pen in her hand stops its nervous tapping. The bailiff freezes mid-step, glancing back at the bench for guidance. The courtroom has gone silent in a way it was not silent before. This is the active silence of people who have just realized something unexpected is happening. A homeless man does not speak like a lawyer. A transient does not cite title and section numbers from memory. Vivian knows this. I can see the calculation happening behind her eyes, the recalibration of assumptions. This court does not require legal advice from the gallery, sir. Bailiff, please escort. I interrupt her, gently. The way you might interrupt a student who is about to make an error on an exam. This court is required to follow the law as it was written, Your Honor. I know the intent behind that statute. I was present when it was drafted. The pen starts tapping again. Faster this time. 3 taps, pause, 2 taps, 3 taps, pause, 2 taps. The rhythm is deteriorating, losing its structure. She is losing her grip on the room, and she knows it. Someone in the gallery whispers. The prosecutor rises halfway from her chair, then sits back down. Mike Crawford watches me with the wary confusion of someone who has stopped expecting help and does not quite trust it when it arrives. Vivian leans forward slightly, and when she speaks, her voice has dropped into a lower register. This is the voice she uses when she wants to remind everyone who holds power here. Sir, you are disrupting these proceedings. If you continue, I will hold you in contempt of court. I meet her eyes. She does not recognize me. Why would she? The last time she saw me, I was 43 years old with dark hair and a federal appointment. Now I am 65 with gray stubble and goodwill clothes. I exist in a category her mind has been trained not to examine closely. I press forward anyway. Section 7.4 provides explicit exemption for individuals in Mr. Crawford's circumstances when their conduct poses no danger to others. He was sleeping on a bench. He threatened no one. He damaged no property. The statute was designed to address public safety threats, not to criminalize poverty. Her hand comes down flat on the bench. Not quite a gavel strike, but close. The sound cracks through the room like a warning shot. And that is enough. I keep my voice level, but I do not stop talking. The legislative history is clear on this point. The exemption was included specifically to prevent the kind of enforcement we are seeing here. I know this because I helped write the commentary that accompanied my bailiff. Vivian's voice cuts through mine like a blade. Remove this man from my courtroom. The bailiff moves toward me again, faster now. His hand closes around my upper arm. I do not resist. I also do not stop talking. I am being held in contempt for citing the law, Your Honor. Vivian rises from her seat. The elevation of the bench means she towers over everyone in the room. Her face has gone very pale, 2 spots of color high on her cheekbones. The pen is still in her hand. She's gripping it hard enough that her knuckles have gone white. You are being held in contempt for disrupting these proceedings and challenging the authority of this court. 30 days detention in county lockup. Bailiff, take him into custody. The gavel comes down. Sharp. Final. Furious. The gallery erupts in whispers. Someone pulls out a phone. Mike Crawford is still standing there, forgotten in the chaos, hands shaking worse than before. The bailiff pulls my arms behind my back. I feel the cold metal of handcuffs close around my wrists, the ratcheting click as they lock into place. He is not rough about it, but he is not gentle either. Professional. Efficient. I do not struggle. I do not argue. I turn my head slightly, just enough to see Vivian still standing at the bench, staring down at me with an expression I cannot quite read. Anger, yes, but something else underneath it. Confusion. The first hairline crack in her certainty. The trap is set. All I have to do now is wait. Fingerprints first. The officer presses each of my fingers onto the scanner with bored efficiency. The machine beeps. Digital whirls appear on the screen, mapping the unique architecture of my identity into the system. Then the camera for the mugshot, the flash leaving purple afterimages across my vision. Personal effects inventoried and sealed in a clear plastic bag that holds almost nothing, because I brought almost nothing. The biometric scan comes last. Full retinal and facial recognition cross-referenced against federal databases. The officer positions my face in front of the scanner. I look directly into the lens. The machine hums. The screen flickers. Then it pauses. The officer frowns at his monitor, tapping the edge with one finger. Another officer glances over from the adjacent desk. System glitching again. Yeah, keeps freezing on the clearance check. He jabs at his keyboard with more force than necessary. A supervisor appears, clipboard in hand. Irritation already settled into the lines around her mouth. She glances at the screen, waves a dismissive hand. Just process him. IT can sort it out later. The first officer shrugs and overrides the pause. My file gets stamped and coded. I am officially John Doe contempt of court, 30 days detention. But somewhere in Washington, in a secure facility that most federal employees do not know exists, an alert has been triggered. A red flag attached to biometric data that should not belong to anyone currently sitting in a county holding cell. Eleanor Hartwell will receive notification within the hour. Vivian will know within 2. The question is what my daughter will do with that information. They lead me down 2 flights of stairs into the basement level, where the temporary holding cells occupy space that was probably used for storage when this building was new. The air grows heavier with each step, thick with humidity, and the particular smell of too many people confined in too little space. The cell door clangs shut behind me. Metal bench along one wall. Toilet in the corner with no seat. Fluorescent light behind a metal grate that buzzes like an angry wasp. 2 women already occupy the space, sitting at opposite ends of the bench, with the careful distance of strangers forced into unwanted intimacy. The older one looks up first. Black woman in her late 50s, gray threading through her hair in dignified streaks. She wears a Veterans for Peace sweatshirt. Her eyes assess me with the wariness of someone who has learned to evaluate threats quickly. You don't look like you belong here, old man. She gestures at the empty section of bench. But then none of us do. I sit. The younger woman at the far end keeps her face turned toward the wall. Early 20s, blonde hair in a messy ponytail college sweatshirt. Her shoulders shake with the rhythm of someone trying not to cry and failing. First time, the older woman asks me. First time in a long time. She nods. Betty Morrison. Arrested for trespassing at the VA Medical Center, protesting their refusal to expand mental health services for women veterans. The younger woman finally turns. Her face is blotchy, mascara smeared. Rachel Morgan. Climate protest outside City Hall. Judge Penhaligon gave me 6 months probation, called me a spoiled child playing activist, said I needed to learn consequences. Her voice cracks. I'm going to lose my scholarship. The name hits like a fist. I keep my expression neutral, but Betty catches something in my face anyway. You know her, I know of her. Then you know she's got a reputation. Harshest judge in Hartford County, maybe in the state. Betty shifts on the bench. Maximum sentence for trespassing, 30 days. No consideration of my service record, my advocacy work, nothing. Rachel wipes her face. She didn't even look at me when she gave the sentence. I listen. Every detail they provide adds to the pattern I have been tracking from a distance for months. Vivian's rulings have been escalating in severity, targeting specific demographics: protesters, advocates, poor defendants without resources to appeal. How long has the judge been like this? I ask carefully. Betty considers the question. Started maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Nothing dramatic at first. Then it accelerated. Last year especially. Now she's like a machine. Cold, efficient. 2 or 3 years. The timeline aligns with when Marcus Vane entered Vivian's life. When the first campaign donations from defense contractors started appearing in public records. Footsteps echo in the corridor outside. A key turns in the lock. A young man in a rumpled suit steps inside, briefcase in one hand, legal pad in the other. He has the exhausted earnestness of a public defender, still young enough to believe the system can be fixed from within. I'm Daniel Reed. I've been assigned to represent you for your arraignment. He sits on the edge of the bench, flipping open his legal pad. Sir, I can request an expedited arraignment if you'd like to resolve this quickly. Contempt charges typically result in time served if you apologize. How long have you been practicing, Mr. Reed? He blinks. 3 years. Why? Long enough to recognize when a judge violates due process. His pen stops moving. He looks at me more carefully now. I reach into my pocket and pull out the small pencil they gave me during booking. On the corner of Rachel's discarded tissue box, I write 3 lines in cramped letters. Fold the cardboard twice. Hand it to Daniel. Call Eleanor Hartwell at the Connecticut Supreme Court. Tell her SR0 has activated. She'll understand. Daniel stares at the folded paper. SR0, I don't. You don't need to understand. You just need to make the call. Today. He opens his mouth, closes it. Whatever he sees in my face convinces him not to argue. He tucks the paper into his inner jacket pocket. Okay, I'll make the call. After he leaves, the cell falls back into quiet. The afternoon light filtering through the high basement windows shifts toward evening. I sit on that cold metal bench and think about every check I signed over the years. Monthly deposits into Helen's account, always from a numbered trust, never with my name attached. Enough to keep them comfortable. Enough to pay for Vivian's education, her bar exam prep, her first professional wardrobe. I told myself I was protecting them by staying away. All those years of silence. Every check I sent. This is the reunion we deserved. I did not learn about Eleanor's call until much later. All I knew was that 6 hours in that basement cell felt like 6 weeks. Time moves differently when you are waiting for a plan to activate, when every sound in the corridor might be the footsteps you need to hear. Betty broke the silence first, her voice cutting through the dim buzz of fluorescent lights. You got family, old man, the daughter. The words came easier than I expected. She's busy. Too busy to bail you out. Something like that. Rachel looked up from where she sat, hunched against the wall, studying me with sudden focus. You talk like a lawyer. Are you a lawyer? I used to draft legal documents for the government. Betty's eyes narrowed. You're not regular homeless. We're all regular, just different paths that led us here. She did not look convinced, but she let it drop. Some questions are safer left unasked in a holding cell where privacy is a fiction and every word echoes off concrete. The door clanged open. Mitchum filled the frame, but his swagger from earlier had evaporated. He looked nervous. His hand rested on his belt the way it might if he expected trouble. "You, Penhaligon, come with me." Betty stood halfway up. "Where are you taking him?" "Judge wants to see him." The cell went quiet. Rachel's eyes went wide. Even Betty looked unsettled. Mitchum's hand closed around my upper arm. Not rough, but firm. He walked me through corridors I knew from memory, upstairs, that led away from the basement detention area toward the judicial chambers on the 4th floor. His grip stayed tight the entire way, fingers pressing into my bicep, like he thought I might vanish if he loosened his hold. Something had changed. The system had received information it did not expect, and now everyone was recalibrating. We stopped outside a door marked Private, Chambers 4. Through the wood I could hear a voice. Vivian's voice, though not the words, just the tone, sharp at first, then higher, defensive sliding into panic, sliding into anger. The door opened before Mitchum could knock. Vivian stood framed in the doorway. Her judicial robe gone, replaced by a gray suit that probably cost more than most of her defendants earned in a month. Her face had the tight control of someone working very hard to maintain composure. But her eyes were different now. They actually saw me, not as background noise or a nuisance to be removed, but as something that required assessment. "Sit!" The office was exactly as I remembered. Same oak desk, same high-backed chair, same window overlooking the park, where protesters sometimes gathered with signs the courts preferred to ignore. I sat in the chair facing the desk, the one positioned slightly lower to reinforce hierarchy. Vivian circled behind her desk, but did not sit. She stood there studying me the way a scientist might study a specimen that had produced unexpected results. The silence stretched. She wanted me to speak first. I waited. Finally, she broke. "Who are you?" "The docket lists me as Arthur Brennan." "I know what the docket says." Her voice had edges now sharp enough to cut. "Chief Justice Hartwell just informed me that you hold a federal clearance level I have never encountered. She strongly suggested I handle your case with extreme care. So I will ask again. Who are you?" Someone observing whether this court still functions as it was designed to. Her jaw tightened. The pen in her hand started its rhythm. 3 taps against the desk surface. Pause. 2 taps. She did not seem to notice. "You staged this entire incident." "I participated in a legal proceeding." "You chose how to respond to that participation." "What do you want?" "I already have it." She finally sat leaning forward with both hands flat on the desk, trying to reclaim authority through posture. "The contempt charge is dismissed. You are free to go. I trust you will file whatever report you came here to file and leave my courtroom alone." I stood slowly. Let the pause extend. She needed to understand this was not negotiation. "Too late for that, Your Honor." "Excuse me. You cannot undo what already happened. The moment you detained me, you triggered mandatory review processes. My observations have been filed with the appropriate oversight bodies. Your contempt charge being dismissed now only adds another data point to the pattern." Something cracked in her expression. Just a hairline fracture in the professional mask, but I caught it. Fear. She was beginning to understand that this was not a random disruption she could erase with a gavel strike. I walked toward the door. My hand was on the handle when I turned back. "But one question before I go. The way you tap your pen during difficult hearings. 3 taps, pause, 2 taps. Do you know what that rhythm represents?" She blinked. "What?" "See Morse code. SOS. Someone once told you that rhythm meant save me. Taught it to you as a game when you were small." I held her gaze. "I wonder if they would still recognize what you have become." I opened the door and walked out before she could respond. Behind me, I heard the pen clatter against the desk. Through the closing gap, I caught one last glimpse of Vivian staring down at her hands. Fingers splayed against the wood, as if seeing them for the first time. Mitchum waited in the corridor. He did not speak as he escorted me back down to retrieve my belongings. At the front desk, they returned my plastic bag of possessions. The officer processing my release kept glancing at his computer screen, like it might suddenly make sense. Outside, the October night had settled cool and clear. I stood on the courthouse steps, breathing air that did not smell of concrete and desperation. Somewhere above me, 4 floors up, in an office I knew better than she did, my daughter was staring at her hands and hearing an echo from a childhood she thought she had left behind. The trap was not just set anymore. It was closing. October dusk in Hartford smells like wood smoke and wet leaves, the sound of rush hour traffic fading into the distance as I stand on the courthouse steps. Free, but not safe. The system knows I exist now, which means Vivian will start digging into Arthur Brennan's background, pulling threads until something unravels. Daniel Reed waits at the bottom of the steps. Briefcase clutched against his chest like armor. His face is pale in the sodium light's eyes too wide. I made the call to Chief Justice Hartwell. His voice drops even though no one is near enough to hear. She knew exactly who you are. Sir, what are you? Someone trying to fix a mistake. What mistake? I look back at the courthouse at the window on the 4th floor, where a light still burns in chambers I once knew as well as my own hands. A large one. The Charter Oak Diner sits 3 blocks from the courthouse, the kind of local institution that survives on coffee refills and regulars who know each other's names. Warm light spills through plate glass windows onto cracked sidewalk. We take the corner booth. Coffee arrives in thick ceramic mugs. Daniel sits across from me, waiting, that same earnest intensity burning in his face. I pull the folded papers from inside my jacket. Legal pad sheets covered in cramped handwriting, composed in a holding cell with a pencil stub and 20 years of constitutional law expertise. Emergency injunction. Charter Oak Historic District demolition. I slide it across the table. File it tomorrow morning. First thing. Daniel unfolds the pages, scanning the dense legal language. His eyes widen halfway down the first page. This cites legislative history I have never seen published. Drafting committee notes from the Historic Preservation Act. These are not public record. They were not meant to be published. Those are internal notes from the drafting process. He looks up. How do you have access to these? Because I wrote them. His mouth opens, closes. He sets the papers down carefully like they might catch fire. I reach into my other pocket and pull out a second document. 3 pages, single-spaced, typed on a library computer 2 days before I walked into courtroom 4B. A list of cases, names, docket numbers, rulings, patterns. Your judge is taking money. Find the trail. Start with these cases. Follow the connections between rulings and who benefited. Daniel picks up the list, reading. I watch his face change as the pattern becomes visible. You're asking me to investigate a sitting judge. I am asking you to save her before she destroys more lives, including her own. I stand across the street from the house in West Hartford, looking at windows I have not seen illuminated in person for years. The kitchen light is on. I can see movement inside a figure passing from counter to sink. 22 years of absence compressed into this moment of decision. I have avoided this street for 2 decades. But tonight, if Vivian starts investigating Arthur Brennan, she will trace the property trust that pays the mortgage. She will call Helen. My wife needs to be ready. Or maybe I just need to see someone who still knows who I used to be. I cross the street, climb the 3 steps to the front door. My hand shakes slightly as I knock. Helen opens the door, and the sound she makes is not quite a word. Her hand goes to her mouth. Tears come immediately, spilling over without restraint. Ed. Hello, Helen. We do not embrace. The distance between us is too great, measured not in feet, but in years of silence and choices that cannot be unmade. She steps back. I enter. The house smells the same, coffee and lavender, and the particular scent of a home where someone lives alone. The kitchen table is the same one we bought together 30 years ago, scarred oak, that has survived moves and children and decades of accumulated life. We sit across from each other, steam rising from mugs of tea neither of us drinks. You have seen her? Yes. Did she recognize? No, not yet. Helen's hands tremble around the mug. She is crying quietly now, the way people cry when they have done it so often the mechanics have become automatic. So I tried Ed, all these years. I told her you loved her, that you left to protect us. She would not listen. She built this wall, and I could not get through it. This is not your fault. I made the choice to leave. I made the choice to stay away. Whatever Vivian has become, that is on me. What happens now? I stop her. Before she ruins more lives, before she becomes something beyond saving. Helen sets down her mug. Looks at me with eyes that have learned how to see past surfaces. Yet there is a man, Marcus, prosecutor. She talks about him in a way she has never talked about anyone else. But Ed, he makes her worse. Colder. More distant. I have met him twice, and there is something wrong with him. Something calculated. I file this information away. Marcus Vane. Name appearing in case files, campaign donations, procurement contracts. Now attached to my daughter in ways that go beyond professional. Can you save her? I want to lie. Want to promise Helen that I can fix this, repair what I helped break. But we are past the age where comfort matters more than honesty. I will try. But Helen, she may hate me more when this is over than she does now. She cannot hate you more than she already does Ed. That is not possible. The motel room off I-84 costs $43 a night and smells like cigarettes and industrial cleaner. The bed is hard. I sit at the small desk with my laptop and the files I have been compiling for 6 months, cross-referencing rulings and financial records, and the network of connections that tells a story Vivian does not yet know she is part of. Tomorrow, the real work begins. Daniel will file the injunction. The review board will start pulling files. Eleanor will activate oversight protocols that have been dormant since I disappeared from public view. Tonight, I allow myself grief for the daughter I raised until she was 10, for the woman she might have become if I had made different choices, for Helen, who spent 22 years keeping a family together while I played ghost. Tomorrow. Tonight, just grief. Morning came with burnt motel coffee and the endless rumble of I-84 traffic. I slept 3 hours, not from exhaustion, but from the particular energy that comes when you know the endgame is approaching. My laptop glowed in the weak dawn light. The legal database credentials still worked. Federal access that comes with being Shadow Commissioner Emeritus, a title most people do not know exists, and fewer still understand. I pulled up eminent domain filings for Hartford County, sorting by date and district. Charter Oak Historic District. Demolition scheduled. Final approval pending routine judicial review. The address made my chest tighten. 47 Charter Oak Street. Helen and I opened our first law office there in 1987. 2 rooms above a bodega, rent we could barely afford, dreams larger than our bank account. Vivian learned to read in that office. She would sit on the floor between case files and coffee-stained briefs, sounding out words like plaintiff and defendant, as if they were incantations, which in their way, they were. This demolition is personal. The question is whether Vivian knows that, or whether someone chose that address specifically because they knew what it would mean to her. I called Daniel at 7 in the morning, early enough to catch him before court, but late enough that he would be awake. I need you to file an emergency injunction today. Charter Oak demolition. His voice came back groggy but sharpening fast. On what grounds? Eminent domain abuse. The taking violates Section 12 exemptions. Public necessity requires demonstrable public benefit, not private developer profit maximization. That exemption exists in Clause C. They are ignoring it. Who's they? Find out. Pull the procurement records. Follow the money trail from the development company back to whoever stands to profit. File by end of business today. Sir, you keep saying you wrote these statutes. Who are you? Someone who is running out of patience. File the injunction. We will talk later. I hung up before he could press further. By 4 that afternoon, Daniel had filed. I knew because my phone rang with his number, his voice tight with the particular stress that comes from challenging power directly. It's done. Clerk stamped it 20 minutes ago. Good. Vivian will see it by tonight. She already has. She was in the courthouse when I filed, saw my name on the docket, and demanded a copy before I made it to my car. I leaned forward, and she went ballistic. Threw the brief across her office. I could hear her through the door. Demanded to know who wrote it, who was behind it, whether I understood I was committing professional suicide. What did you tell her? That a concerned citizen assisted with legal research. She did not believe me for a second. He paused. There was someone in her office with her. A prosecutor. Marcus Vane. He looked too comfortable there. Like he belonged. Marcus. Present not just in her personal life, but in her judicial decisions. The handler staying close to his asset. Good work. Get some sleep. This is about to accelerate. I spent the next 2 hours pulling everything I could find on Marcus Vane. Senior prosecutor, 5 years in Hartford County law degree from a decent public school that was not quite prestigious enough to quiet his insecurity about it. Campaign contributions to 3 judges, 2 city councilors, and 1 state representative. All small amounts, legal, carefully documented. Then the connection I was looking for. Dominic Thorne. Weapons contractor, surveillance equipment supplier, lobbyist with fingers in procurement contracts across New England. Marcus had received consulting fees from a shell company Thorne controlled. $30,000 over 18 months listed as expert witness preparation that never resulted in testimony. I cross-referenced the timeline. Marcus entered Vivian's life 2 years ago at a legal conference in Boston. 6 months later, her rulings on qualified immunity cases shifted hard in favor of law enforcement. A year after that, Hartford PD signed a body cam contract with a Thorne subsidiary. 18 months in the eminent domain approvals for Charter Oak started moving through the system despite community opposition. Marcus was not just her lover, he was her handler. And handlers always work for someone else. My phone rang. Helen. Vivian stopped by last night. My hand tightened on the phone. Did she say why? Asked whether I had hired any legal help regarding property in Charter Oak. Whether I knew anyone fighting the development. Helen's voice was steady but strained. I told her no, but Ed, she knows someone is working against her. She's becoming paranoid. These paranoid people make mistakes. Should the paranoid people also become dangerous? I am counting on both. I softened my voice slightly. How did she seem angry, scared underneath it? She kept asking whether I had seen you, whether I knew where you were. I told her the same thing I have told her for 22 years, that I do not know. You are a better liar than I ever was. I have had more practice. A pause. Please be careful. I have been careful for 2 decades. That is what got us here. She hung up without saying goodbye. Old habit from when we were young and phone calls cost money we did not have. Some patterns never break. Daniel called again just before midnight. Hearing is scheduled next Thursday, 10 a.m., courtroom 4B, Vivian's courtroom. Of course. She would want home field advantage. Who is presiding? Judge Penhaligon. She recused herself from nothing. She would not. Recusal would be admission that she has a conflict. She will preside and dare anyone to challenge her authority. This is going to be a war, is not it? It has been a war since the moment I walked into her courtroom. She just did not know it yet. 7 days. She would use them to build defenses, call in favors, marshal whatever resources Marcus and his backers could provide. I would use them to dismantle the empire she did not yet understand she had helped construct. The countdown had begun. I took the front row this time. No more hiding at the back. No more playing invisible. The courtroom filled around me with Charter Oak residents Daniel had spent the week organizing. Keisha Williams sat 3 seats down, still on probation from her last appearance before this bench, but present anyway, because sometimes showing up is the only power left to claim. Betty Morrison dropped into the seat beside me, recognition sparking in her eyes. "You're the crazy guy who cited law right to her face. Guilty as charged. Well, you got guts." She settled her purse on her lap. "Let's see if you got brains." Rachel Morgan took a seat in the row behind us, pale but determined. The gallery filled with faces I recognized from files and news reports. People who had been ground through this system and somehow still believed it might work if pushed hard enough in the right direction. The media was here too. Local news cameras in the back, reporters with notebooks, the kind of attention that makes judges nervous and careful. Vivian entered through the side door. Her eyes swept the packed courtroom, the unusual crowd, the cameras. When her gaze reached me in the front row, her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. She knew. Not who I was, not yet. But she knew I had orchestrated this. "All rise." Daniel stood at the plaintiff's table, looking younger than his 28 years, and more determined than I had seen him yet. Across from him, the city's attorney adjusted an expensive suit and opened a briefcase that probably cost more than Daniel made in a month. Vivian took her seat. "Counsel, proceed." Daniel's voice was steady as he laid out the case. Historical significance of Charter Oak District. Resident testimony about community ties spanning generations. The statutory exemptions under eminent domain law that required demonstration of genuine public benefit, not just private profit masked as public interest. I had written every argument for him on legal pads over coffee at the diner. Every citation, every reference to legislative history, every technical point of law, he delivered them with the earnestness of someone who still believed the system could be made to work. The city attorney's rebuttal was weak. Generic language about urban renewal and economic development. The kind of argument that sounds impressive until you realize it contains no actual legal substance. He was being paid to lose gracefully to provide cover, while someone more powerful made decisions elsewhere. Evidence was entered into the record. Property deeds, historical surveys. Then the document that made Vivian's pen stop its nervous tapping. 47 Charter Oak Street, owned by Penhaligon Family Trust since 1987. Something flickered across her face. Recognition trying to surface through layers of professional distance. Daniel built the case methodically, each point following logically from the last. I watched Vivian's expression shift as she recognized the legal architecture underlying every argument. She knew this style, had been trained in it, could probably trace some of these reasoning patterns back to seminars and conversations she did not consciously remember. She leaned forward, interrupting Daniel mid-sentence. "Counsel, you graduated law school 3 years ago. This brief cites legislative debates from 1994 and drafting committee notes that were never publicly released. Where did you get this research?" "Now, I had assistance from someone with expertise in eminent domain law, Your Honor." Her eyes scanned the gallery again. "Found me, locked on. She knows, not who I am, but that I am behind this." She was about to call a recess when I stood. "Your Honor, I would like to address the court." Every head turned. Vivian's face went very still. "Mr. Brennan, you are not counsel of record in this matter. I am a property owner in the affected district. I have standing to address issues that directly impact my property rights." A pause. She could deny me, but it would look like she was hiding something. The media cameras were recording. "You own property in Charter Oak, 47 Charter Oak Street, purchased in 1987. I kept my voice level, factual. My family started there. We built something in that building that mattered to us and to this community. The color drained from Vivian's face. She had seen the trust name on the deed, but had not connected it, had not imagined that the man she held in contempt 2 weeks ago, the man she still knew only as Arthur Brennan, could own the property at the heart of this case. Your Honor, when you demolish that building, you are not clearing blight. You are erasing history. You are destroying the physical space where families built their lives and their futures, including mine. Her hands gripped the edge of the bench hard enough that her knuckles went white. The courtroom had gone absolutely silent. Everyone watching this exchange with the fascination of people who sense they are witnessing something larger than the case ostensibly before them. Vivian took a breath. When she spoke, the coldness was back, the professional mask rebuilt. Motion for emergency injunction is denied. The demolition will proceed as originally scheduled per city development plan. The gallery erupted. Gasps, angry murmurs, someone shouting from the back. Daniel was on his feet. Your Honor, on what statutory basis we have demonstrated clear exemption under the property has been deemed a public safety hazard under City Code Section 47, which grants this court discretionary authority to prioritize public welfare. I stayed standing. Section 47 requires independent structural assessment conducted by a licensed engineer. Has such an assessment been conducted? Her eyes locked on mine. I could see the calculation happening. How far could she push this before it became obviously corrupt? How much authority did Arthur Brennan actually have? Are you questioning this court's diligence, Mr. Brennan? I'm questioning whether the law is being followed or merely weaponized to serve interests that have nothing to do with public welfare. The gavel came down like a gunshot. Say one more word, and you will be held in contempt. Bailiff, if Mr. Brennan speaks again, remove him from my courtroom. Mitchum moved toward me, hand on his belt, eyes apologetic but duty-bound. I sat down, made no more sound. Let the ruling stand unchallenged, not because I accepted it, but because the challenge had already been delivered. She had revealed herself in front of cameras and a packed gallery. The denial was so transparently corrupt that even the city attorney looked uncomfortable. Outside, Daniel leaned against the courthouse wall, like someone who had just run a marathon and finished last. We lost. She denied everything. Demolition goes forward Saturday morning. We have 72 hours, I said. Saturday morning, 6 a.m. That is when we gather the evidence we actually need. He looked at me like I had lost my mind. Maybe I had. Or maybe I had finally found it again. 72 hours. That was all we had between Vivian's ruling and the wrecking ball. Daniel filed 2 more emergency motions, both denied by judges who owed Vivian favors or feared crossing her. By Friday night, we knew we had lost the legal battle. Saturday morning at 6, I stood across from 47 Charter Oak Street and watched my past prepare to die. Cold October dawn, the kind that makes breath visible and fingers ache. The bulldozers were already warming up, yellow machines rumbling like metal predators impatient to feed. Police barriers formed a perimeter 3 deep. Vivian had made sure there would be no interference, no last-minute heroics from protesters who did not understand that sometimes you have to let something be destroyed to prove it should have been saved. Daniel had organized them anyway. Betty Morrison stood near the front, arms crossed, jaw set. Mike Crawford leaned on his cane, older and more tired than when I first saw him in that courtroom, but present because showing up matters. Keisha Williams held her daughter's hand. Rachel Morgan clutched a sign I could not quite read. Dozens more faces I recognized from files and hearings, people who had been ground through the system and decided they were done being quiet about it. I stood silent, witnessing. That was all the power I had left at this moment. The memory hit without warning. Vivian, at 8 years old, sitting cross-legged on the floor of that building we were about to watch, destroyed, surrounded by case files taller than she was. She looked up at me with that serious expression she wore when asking questions she really wanted answered. "Daddy, why does law have so many big words?" "Because big words protect small people, sweetheart. The law is supposed to be a shield, not a sword." I taught her law was a shield. She turned it into a guillotine. Helen appeared beside me without announcement, the way she used to appear in doorways when we were young and working late bringing coffee and the implicit understanding that we were in this together. "You didn't have to come," I finally said. "I needed to. We started here." She doesn't know. About this building. About what it meant to us. She will know. After this is gone. Helen kept her eyes on the building. "That's your plan, isn't it? Let her discover what she was erasing only after it's too late to undo." I nodded. The first swing of the wrecking ball came without ceremony. Metal against brick, a sound like thunder compressed into a single note. The west wall collapsed the section where Vivian used to sit in her reading corner, where she learned to sound out plaintiff and defendant and jurisdiction like they were magic spells. Helen's hand found mine, gripped hard. Neither of us cried. We were too numb for that, too much time and damage between who we had been and who we were now. Through the rising dust cloud, I caught movement near the inspector's truck. The same city inspector who had signed the safety hazard report, the document Vivian used to justify this demolition. He was talking to a man in an expensive suit, someone I recognized from weeks of research into the network surrounding my daughter. Dominic Thorne, weapons contractor, surveillance equipment supplier. The money behind Marcus Vane and a dozen other influence operations across New England. An envelope changed hands. Not subtle, not hidden. Brazen transfer of cash in plain sight, because men like Thorne have learned that most people will not believe what they see, even when it happens right in front of them. "Daniel," I kept my voice low. "Tell me you got that on video." He stood 10 feet away, phone raised, face grim. "Every second. That's our evidence." Vivian signed the demolition order based on a fraudulent assessment. That inspector was bribed. This entire process was corrupt from the beginning. "This is criminal," Daniel said. "Bribery, fraud, conspiracy. Yatin, this is what we needed. Upload it immediately. Multiple backups. Cloud storage, email it to yourself. Send copies to 3 people you trust. We cannot lose this." He was already moving, fingers flying across his phone screen. The demolition took 40 minutes. Each wall that fell felt like something being torn out of me. When dust finally settled, there was nothing left but rubble, a footprint of destruction where a building had stood for 60 years. In the rubble, I could see the basement level exposed to daylight for the first time in decades. A metal filing cabinet lay on its side, dented but intact. Evidence of what this place had been, who had worked here, what it had meant. "We need to retrieve that," I told Daniel, "before they clear the site." Later at Helen's house, we spread salvaged photographs across the kitchen table. Water damaged, some partially burned, but readable. Helen found it first, held it up without speaking. Vivian, at 10 years old, standing in front of 47 Charter Oak Street, holding a hand-painted sign that read, "Penhaligon and Penhaligon, Family Law," in careful block letters. She was smiling. Not the professional smile of the judge I had seen in courtroom 4B, but the real smile of a child who believed her father could fix anything with the right legal argument. "She'll hate you when she learns the truth," Helen said. "She already hates me. She just doesn't know why yet." I pulled out my phone, dialed the number I had memorized 22 years ago and never forgotten. Eleanor Hartwell answered on the second ring. "It's time," I said. "Activate the full investigation. We have bribery evidence on video-documented corruption at multiple levels and a sitting judge who has compromised herself beyond recovery. This goes federal now. Edmund." Her voice was tired, but unsurprised. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything. My daughter is drowning. and I'm the only one left who knows how to throw her a rope. A rope she might use to hang you with. Then at least she'll have learned to tie a proper knot. I hung up. The weekend was over. The real war was about to begin. By Sunday morning, the demolition video was everywhere. Daniel had uploaded it to YouTube at midnight Saturday, raw phone footage with no commentary, because none was needed. The image of a city inspector accepting an envelope of cash from Dominic Thorne, while a historic building crumbled in the background, told its own story. We gathered in my motel room, evidence spread across the bed like pieces of a puzzle finally coming together. Victim testimonies, financial records showing suspicious patterns in Vivian's rulings, the bribery video. Betty Morrison sat in the desk chair, Daniel paced near the window, and I stood studying the arrangement like a general planning the next phase of a campaign. "What's next?" Betty asked. "We apply public pressure. Federal investigations move slowly. Public opinion moves fast." Daniel stopped pacing. "You want to release more evidence before there's even a trial. Selectively. Enough to build momentum. Not enough to compromise future prosecution." I picked up a folder containing audio recordings from Vivian's courtroom. "We leaked these. Let people hear her in her own words. No editing, no commentary. Just the raw reality of what she's become." Daniel contacted Sarah Mitchell, an investigative reporter at WFSB Hartford, who had been covering judicial reform for years. He provided her with a compilation audio of Vivian's harshest rulings, her dismissive tone when defendants tried to explain their circumstances, the cold precision with which she destroyed lives. The video of her face while Keisha Williams collapsed. No narration, no dramatic music, just documentation. Within 6 hours, the video had 200,000 views. By Sunday midnight, it was on national news. I watched from the motel TV as CNN ran the story. The Chiron read, "Connecticut judge's cruel rulings go viral." Clips of Vivian cutting off defendants mid-sentence, her voice reciting sentences that separated mothers from children, sent veterans to jail for sleeping on benches, destroyed families over minor infractions. The comment section was a torrent of outrage, calls for impeachment, demands for investigation, people sharing their own stories of being processed through systems that treated them like problems to be eliminated rather than human beings deserving dignity. I felt no satisfaction watching this unfold. This was not victory. This was necessary surgery, the kind where you cut into living tissue to remove something that will kill the patient if left alone. Painful, precise, and absolutely required. Daniel's phone rang constantly. Calls flooding the courthouse. The State Bar Association announced an ethics review. Local news stations scrambled to interview people who had appeared before Judge Penhaligon. The machinery of public accountability, so often slow to engage, had finally been activated. Monday afternoon, Vivian held a press conference. I watched via live stream, studying her face the way I used to study opposing counsel for tells. She claimed the video was stripped of context, that she was tough on crime, not cruel, that the footage had been selectively edited to mislead the public. But her body language betrayed her. The way she gripped the podium, the slight tremor in her voice when a reporter asked about specific cases, the defensive tilt of her shoulders. She was circling the wagons, which meant she was scared, and scared people make desperate calls. Daniel reported the numbers that evening. A local poll showed Vivian's approval rating had dropped 40 points overnight. Calls for her resignation were coming from community organizations, civil rights groups, even some of her fellow judges who suddenly remembered they had always been concerned about her harsh sentencing patterns. The private investigator Daniel had hired weeks ago, paid for with money from my federal pension, delivered the next piece of evidence Tuesday morning. Intercepted email communications between Marcus Vane and Dominic Thorne. Marcus's message was blunt. "That video is a major problem. If they start digging deeper, they'll find the consulting contracts. We need to shut this down immediately." Dominic's reply was even more revealing. Make your judge understand what's at stake. She signed those papers. She's as exposed as we are. If she goes down, she takes us with her. I read the printout 3 times, memorizing every word. There it was. Conspiracy in writing. Marcus knew. Dominic knew. The question was how much Vivian understood about what she had signed, what deals had been made in her name, how deep the corruption actually went. Yukti, we need Marcus's financial records, I told Daniel. Bank statements, consulting agreements, anything showing money flowing from Thorne's companies to Marcus and from Marcus to Vivian. That's going to take subpoena power, which means we need the federal investigation to move faster. Eleanor called that afternoon. It's done. Department of Justice is officially opening an investigation into judicial misconduct, bribery, and civil rights violations in Hartford County Superior Court. Timeline by weeks, possibly months. These things move slowly, Edmund. There are protocols, procedures. I don't have months. She'll either run or destroy evidence, then move fast. But Edmund. Eleanor's voice softened slightly. When she learns who you are, when she understands what you've done, I know what I'm risking. I don't think you do. You're not just dismantling a corrupt judge. You're destroying your daughter's life, her career, her reputation, everything she built. And when she discovers you orchestrated all of it, she destroyed it herself. I'm just showing the world what she chose to become. Eleanor was silent for a long moment. I hope you're right. Because if you're wrong, you'll lose her forever. I lost her 22 years ago. I'm just trying to save what's left of her soul. That evening, my phone rang. Helen. Her voice was shaking in a way I had not heard since the night we decided I needed to disappear. Ed, she's asking questions about old court records, property trusts, about us. The line went dead. Whether Helen had hung up or the connection had dropped, I could not tell. Vivian was digging. She had not yet connected Arthur Brennan to Edmund Penhaligon, but she was starting to pull threads. And when those threads led back to her father, when she realized that the man who had been systematically dismantling her life was the same man she thought had abandoned her 22 years ago, there would be no coming back from that revelation. The war had begun, and my daughter was about to learn who her real enemy was. I spent the first week of November pulling apart Dominic Thorne's empire piece by piece. Stratton Defense Solutions. The name sounded patriotic, reassuring, the kind of company that promised to make communities safer. What it actually did was profit from violence, body cams, tactical consulting packages, conditional immunity insurance for police departments worried about lawsuits. The more I dug, the clearer the pattern became. Cities with the highest rates of police use of force were Stratton's biggest clients. Departments that paid for Thorne's protocols bought themselves legal protection when those protocols resulted in broken bones or worse. Qualified immunity rulings protected officers who followed those protocols. Protected officers meant protected clients for Stratton. Protected clients meant more contracts, more equipment, sales, more consulting fees. A self-sustaining cycle of violence, monetized and legally armored. Vivian had issued 17 qualified immunity rulings in the past 2 years. 17 cases where families trying to hold officers accountable for wrongful death, excessive force, or civil rights violations ran into a wall built by my daughter's gavel. Officers followed protocol. Protocol was reasonable. Case dismissed. She was not just corrupt. She was shielding people who had taken lives, making their actions legally untouchable, and getting paid for it through a web of shell companies and consulting fees that would take federal prosecutors months to fully map. Every immunity ruling Vivian signed made Dominic Thorne richer, and Dominic Thorne made sure Marcus Vane kept Vivian signing. Mike Crawford looked better than when I had last seen him. The Veterans Housing Program had given him a room, regular meals, access to mental health services that actually helped instead of warehousing people until they became someone else's problem. He still had that wary edge that comes from too many years living rough, but his hands shook less, and his eyes held focus. "Stu, you know why I was really arrested?" he asked when I visited. "It wasn't just about sleeping on that bench. I was at the VA protest demanding answers about Carlos Martinez." "Who's Martinez?" "Army vet. Did 2 tours in Afghanistan. Made it through both alive." Mike's jaw tightened. His life ended during a Hartford Police Department wellness check. Officers said he posed a threat. Body cam mysteriously failed right before the shooting. 3 witnesses said Carlos had his hands up. The gut punch of recognition. Another name. Another family destroyed. Judge Penhaligon ruled the family couldn't sue for wrongful death. Said the officers followed proper protocol, acted reasonably given the information they had. No qualified immunity exception applied. What protocol? So that's the thing. The protocol was written by Stratton Defense Solutions, paid for by Dominic Thorne, approved and implemented with your judge's legal blessing. Mike leaned forward. Carlos's widow works 2 jobs now trying to keep 3 kids fed. No closure, no justice, no acknowledgement that her husband's life mattered. That's why we protested. That's why your daughter had me arrested. I added the Martinez family to my list. Another set of lives Vivian had casually dismissed in service to a system that valued property and procedure over human dignity. Daniel arrived at the motel room with his laptop and the expression of someone who had just found something he wished he had not. Shell Company, Judicial Excellence Consulting LLC, registered in Delaware 3 years ago. He turned the screen toward me. Bank records obtained through methods I chose not to examine too closely. Payments from Stratton Defense Solutions to the Shell Company. $380,000 over 18 months. Who's the registered agent? Marcus Vane's law school roommate. Guy who works at a corporate firm in Boston now probably has no idea his name is being used. The money moved through a maze of transfers and sub-accounts, but the timing was damning. Large deposits into the Shell Company followed within weeks by luxury purchases Vivian made. A car, renovations on her condo, a vacation to somewhere tropical that required immunity from extradition, though I doubted she understood the irony. "This is it," Daniel said. "This proves the connection." "It's circumstantial. Good circumstantial evidence, but not direct proof Vivian knew where the money came from." I studied the transaction dates. "We need Marcus to flip. We need him to testify that he funneled Thorne's money to Vivian in exchange for favorable rulings. How do we make a prosecutor flip on a judge he's sleeping with? We show him he's the fall guy." I closed the laptop. "Leak to the media that Marcus Vane is under federal investigation for bribery and corruption. Make it clear that Thorne is cooperating with investigators. Let Marcus realize he's the only one going down for this unless he cuts a deal first." Daniel's eyes widened slightly. "That's so predatory, yes. Also effective. When cornered animals realize they're alone, they turn on the pack." My phone rang. "Eleanor, Edmund, Vivian is asking questions about you." "What kind of questions?" "About Arthur Brennan. She's running background checks. They're coming back empty because the identity is shallow. She knows the name is fake." "Let her run into walls." "She's also searching property records for anything tied to the Penhaligon name. Old case files from when you practiced. Edmund, she's looking for family connections." A cold certainty settled in my chest. "She's looking for me. When she finds you, when she understands what you've done." Recognition is inevitable at this point. Better it happens on my terms than hers. Eleanor was silent for a moment. "I hope you know what you're doing." "So I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm destroying my daughter's life to save what's left of her soul." That evening, Helen called. Her voice had that particular shake that meant she was trying very hard not to fall apart. "Vivian stopped by today. Asked if I know anyone named Arthur Brennan." "What did you tell her?" I said no. I'm a better liar than I used to be. A pause. But Ed, she has that look. The one she gets when she's working on a legal problem. Like pieces are connecting in her head, and she's not sure yet what picture they're making, but she knows it's important. Let them connect. The truth is coming either way. Are you ready for that, for her to know? I thought about Vivian at 8 years old asking why laws had big words. About the photo of her at 10 holding that hand-painted sign. About every choice I had made in the past 22 years that had led to this moment. No. But it's happening anyway. I hung up and stared at the motel room wall covered in documents, photographs, timelines. A web of corruption with my daughter at the center. The countdown to recognition had begun. When Vivian finally connected Arthur Brennan to Edmund Penhaligon, when she understood that her father had orchestrated her downfall, there would be no coming back from that revelation. But maybe that was the point. Maybe some truths have to burn everything down before anything better can grow in the ashes. 3 weeks after the federal investigation began, the Connecticut Supreme Court issued an order that Vivian could not ignore. Judge Penhaligon must appear before the court for an emergency petition. All 17 of her qualified immunity rulings were under review. She fought the order, filed motions, claimed judicial independence. She lost. Tuesday morning, courtroom 4B was packed beyond capacity. Media in the back rows, legal observers with notebooks, families of people whose cases Vivian had dismissed. Edmund sat in the front row, no longer hiding, no longer pretending to be anyone other than who he was. Vivian entered through the side door. Her eyes found him immediately drawn by some instinct she did not yet understand. Their gazes locked across the crowded room. Something had shifted in her expression. Edmund could see it the way her brain had started assembling pieces without conscious direction. Not full recognition yet. But the edges were forming. During the proceedings, Edmund touched his left temple without thinking. An old injury from a bicycle accident when he was 8, a habit of running his fingers over the faint scar when he was thinking hard. He had done it thousands of times over the decades, unconscious as breathing. Vivian's eyes followed the movement. She froze mid-sentence, losing her place in whatever argument she was making. 25 years ago, she had been 7 years old, sitting in his lap, tracing that same scar with her small fingers. "Daddy, why do you have that scar?" "Bike accident when I was your age, sweetheart." "Did it hurt?" "Only when it rains." In the present, Vivian was staring at his hand, at his temple, at something she could not quite name, but recognized at a level deeper than conscious thought. Her own hand drifted to her temple in an unconscious mirror of his gesture. Then she caught herself, forced her attention back to the proceedings, but her voice had lost its certainty. Court recessed for 20 minutes. Vivian walked past Edmund toward the hallway water fountain, her heels clicking against tile with the precise rhythm of someone trying very hard to maintain control. Edmund leaned against the wall near the courtroom entrance, holding his briefcase. Without thinking, he tapped his fingers against the leather. 3 taps. Pause. 2 taps. The SOS rhythm he had taught her when she was small turned into an unconscious, nervous habit over decades of high-stakes legal work. Vivian stood at the fountain water running over her cupped hands. The sound of those taps reached her. She turned, slowly, stared at his hands, then at his face, then at his eyes, gray eyes. The same gray as her own, the genetic lottery that had given them both the same distinctive color that looked almost silver in certain light. Edmund watched her face as every buried memory surfaced at once. Arthur Brennan's encyclopedic knowledge of law, the Charter Oak Property Trust, the legal writing style she had recognized in every brief Daniel filed, the scar, the rhythm, eyes that looked exactly like her own. The water cup slipped from her hand, hit the floor, plastic clattering, and water spreading across tile in a widening pool. Edmund did not move, just held her gaze and waited for the recognition to complete itself. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "No." It can't be. Hello, Vivian. She stepped closer, and he could see her trembling. Not with fear, with rage. It was you. Her voice was rising. The entire time, you. Yes, you manipulated me, set me up. I observed how you used the system. You failed your own test. Where were you? The question came out like a scream she was trying to contain. Do you have any idea what it was like? Watching you become everything I spent my life fighting against. Yes, actually. I have a very clear idea. Just you abandoned us. Tears were forming now, rage and pain mixing into something dangerous. You left me and Mom and just disappeared. I left to keep you safe. She laughed, and the sound was bitter and broken. Safe, you vanished for 2 decades, and you think that made us safe. I made sure you had resources. Made sure you and your mother. Johnny! She was shouting now, not caring who heard. Money replaces having a father. Money makes up for 22 years of wondering if you were dead, or if you just decided we weren't worth staying for. No. Nothing replaces that. But if I had stayed, you would have been a target for the people who opposed what I built. Target of who? The same people who own you now. Vivian recoiled as if he had struck her. You don't know anything about my life. I know Marcus Vane. I know Dominic Thorne. I know about Judicial Excellence Consulting and $380,000 that moved through shell companies into your accounts. That's a lie. Is it, or did you just stop noticing where the money came from? Because you convinced yourself you deserved it. The silence that followed was long and painful. When Vivian spoke again, her voice had gone cold and dangerous. What do you want from me? Resign. Tonight. Walk away before this consumes you completely. Never. Then I will dismantle everything you have built. Every ruling, every decision, every piece of your career. I will take it apart, piece by piece, until there is nothing left. I am your daughter. Edmund's voice cracked just slightly. And that breaks my heart. Every single day it breaks my heart. But you are also a corrupt judge who destroyed innocent lives to serve powerful interests. One truth does not erase the other. Vivian stood there breathing hard, tears streaming down her face. Then she wiped them away with the back of her hand and straightened her spine. You want war, Father. She was walking away now, throwing the words over her shoulder. You'll have it. I know your laws inside out. Every loophole you created, every weakness you encoded into the system. You taught me where to cut. Let's see if the student can beat the teacher. Edmund watched her disappear back into the courtroom, whispered to the empty hallway. But that's what I'm afraid of. He pulled out his phone. Eleanor answered on the first ring. She knows. She won't back down. Escalate to impeachment proceedings. We're out of time. Daniel's call comes at dawn, the kind of hour when bad news travels fastest. Edmund, she's filed 3 separate motions. Fraud under the Arthur Brennan identity. Perjury for your courtroom statements. Obstruction of justice for interfering with demolition orders. She wants an arrest warrant. Maximum security transfer if you're picked up again. I set down my coffee. The motel room is cold, the heating unit rattling against the November wind. Outside, I-84 hums with early commuters. Inside, my daughter is trying to bury me. What else? Security threat designation. She's arguing you pose a danger to the judicial system itself. The language is personal, Edmund. This isn't legal strategy anymore. I close my eyes. 22 years ago, I walked away to keep her safe from the people who wanted to silence me. Now she's using every tool I taught her to destroy me. The symmetry is almost poetic. She's using every administrative weapon she has, I say quietly. This isn't about protecting the bench or upholding law. This is about wounding me. Daniel is silent for a moment. Then, what do? We wait. Vivian's moves are desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. But even as I say it, I feel the trap tightening. She's not just fighting to save her career. She's fighting to erase me. Wednesday afternoon, Eleanor's call interrupts my research. I've been tracing the final connections between Stratton Defense and the shell company, trying to close the last gaps before the federal indictment. Her voice is calm, but I hear the weight behind it. Marcus Vane signed an immunity agreement this morning. Full cooperation. He's giving DOJ everything. Bank records, emails, meeting notes. All of it. I exhale slowly. The news doesn't surprise me. I planted the leak about Marcus being under investigation 2 weeks ago, knowing it would force his hand. Men like Marcus Vane are survivors, first loyalists never. Of course he did, I say. Marcus was only ever loyal to one thing: survival. His attorney released a statement an hour ago. Claims Marcus was manipulated by Judge Penhaligon. Says she coerced him into facilitating payments, threatened his career if he refused. It's a clean pivot. He's painting himself as the victim. I lean back against the motel headboard. The ceiling has a water stain shaped like a broken wing. Fitting. How is Vivian taking it? Not well. Courthouse staff say she locked herself in chambers for 3 hours. When the clerk knocked, they heard files hitting the wall. I imagine my daughter alone in that room, surrounded by the wreckage of her choices. Marcus was her handler, her lover, her bridge to Thorne's empire. Now he's the prosecution's star witness. She must feel the walls closing in. She must feel exactly what I felt 22 years ago when the agency threatened to kill everyone I loved unless I disappeared. She's isolated now, Eleanor says. Thorns in the wind. Marcus flipped. The other judges are distancing themselves. She has no allies left. That makes her more dangerous, I reply. Cornered animals bite hardest. Eleanor doesn't argue. She knows I'm right. By Thursday morning, the news breaks Dominic Thorne is missing. His private jet filed a flight plan to the Cayman Islands late Wednesday night, but Canadian Air Traffic Control diverted the plane after an Interpol alert. Thorne was arrested at the Toronto border crossing, trying to cross on foot with a fake passport. Betty calls me, voice crackling with satisfaction. Did you see Thorne tried to run? Shaku. He didn't get far, I say, watching the news footage on my laptop. Thorne in handcuffs, flanked by federal agents, his tailored suit rumpled and his face pale. The empire is collapsing, Betty. Piece by piece. About damn time. Men like Thorne think they're untouchable. Think money and connections make them immune. Guess he learned otherwise. I think about all the lives Thorne crushed to build Stratton Defense. The Martinez family. The veterans Mike Crawford tried to protect. The Charter Oak families displaced by rigged demolition orders. All of it traced back to Thorne's greed and Vivian's willingness to serve it. He'll be extradited by Monday, I say. DOJ wants him in Hartford for arraignment. Good. I hope he rots. I don't reply. Thorne will face justice. But the real tragedy isn't his downfall. It's that Vivian tied herself to him in the first place. Friday brings Vivian's final gambit. Daniel forwards me the motion as soon as it's filed a petition to declare me mentally incompetent. The language is brutal. Vivian argues I'm a paranoid homeless man with a vendetta that my 22-year absence and use of a false identity prove I'm detached from reality. She claims I have no verifiable employment, no stable address, no credible basis for the accusations I've leveled. The motion asks the court to disregard my testimony entirely and dismiss all charges linked to my involvement. It's a Hail Mary, and it might work. She's trying to erase my credibility before we can dismantle hers, I tell Daniel when he calls. If the court rules I'm incompetent, everything we've built collapses. The immunity deal with Marcus won't matter. Thorne's arrest won't matter. The video evidence won't matter. I'll be dismissed as a delusional vagrant. We'll fight it, Daniel says firmly. We have evidence. Your legal analysis, the documents you've prepared, Helen's testimony about the support you've provided. The prosecutor's team will back us up. Still, will it be enough? Daniel hesitates. It has to be. I stare at the motion on my screen. My daughter's name at the bottom, her signature tight and controlled. She's desperate. And desperation makes people dangerous. That evening, the federal prosecutor calls Helen. She tells me about it later, her voice tired but steady. They asked about the checks, the notes, how long you'd been sending them. What did you say? The truth. 22 years of monthly checks. 412 handwritten notes, one with every payment. Every single one asking about Vivian. How she was doing in school. If she was happy, if she remembered you. My throat tightens. I'd kept copies of those notes filed chronologically in a binder I've carried with me through every move, every motel, every temporary room. Proof that I never stopped being her father, even when I couldn't be in her life. The prosecutor said your testimony was compelling. Helen continues. He said the notes prove you never abandoned us. That you were protecting us. I hope Vivian sees that, I whisper. Helen doesn't answer. We both know hope isn't enough. Late November turns to early December. The final confrontation is days away. The announcement comes on a Tuesday morning, December 3rd. I watch the press conference from Charter Oak Cafe, surrounded by the people whose lives Vivian tried to destroy. Betty sits to my left. Arms crossed, eyes fixed on the screen. Mike Crawford stands behind us, one hand resting on the back of my chair. Keisha Williams is at the next table, her daughter coloring quietly beside her. Rachel Morgan leans against the counter, coffee untouched. The Connecticut House Judiciary Committee chair steps to the podium. The room falls silent. Effective immediately, this committee opens a formal impeachment investigation into Judge Vivian Penhaligon. The charges under consideration include bribery, obstruction of justice, civil rights violations, and judicial misconduct. Betty exhales slowly. It's really happening. The wheels of justice turn slowly, I say. But they do turn. Within hours, Hartford transforms into a media circus. National news crews set up outside the courthouse. Vivian's photo appears on every screen, every front page. The headlines are brutal, judge under investigation. Connecticut corruption scandal. The fall of Judge Penhaligon. I watch it all from the margins, a ghost in my own story. Daniel calls that afternoon with the schedule. December 15th, 10 days away. The hearing will be public broadcast live. I'll testify first, establishing the legal foundation and the pattern of corruption. Then the victims. Then Marcus Vane delivering his immunity-bought testimony. Then the forensic accountant laying out the money trail in clinical detail. Vivian has the right to defend herself, Daniel says. She can testify if she wants. She will, I reply. She'll fight to the end. Edmund, are you ready for this? To face her publicly? To reveal who you are? I stare at the ceiling of the motel room. Water-stained tiles, flickering fluorescent light. 22 years of hiding condensed into 10 days of preparation. So I stopped being ready 22 years ago, Daniel. But it's time. There's a pause. Then, when you walk into that hearing room, you won't be Arthur Brennan anymore. You'll be Edmund Penhaligon, architect of Connecticut law, shadow commissioner, her father. I know, I say quietly. I've been all those things. But when I take that stand, I'll just be the man who failed her. I can't help myself. Wednesday night, I drive to West Hartford and park across the street from Vivian's condo. The lights are on. Shadows move behind the curtains. One shadow. Alone. Helen texts me. She's alone. Marcus won't answer her calls. Her friends have disappeared. She has no one. I sit in the dark car, engine off, watching the window. I started this to stop a corrupt judge, but somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing the judge. and started seeing the little girl who used to climb into my lap and ask why laws had so many big words. The girl who traced the scar on my temple and asked if it hurt. My daughter. Was there another way? Could I have reached her without burning everything down? Could I have knocked on her door, told her the truth, begged her to stop before it was too late? But then I remember Keisha Williams collapsing in that courtroom, her daughter watching. Mike Crawford's hands shaking as he described the shelter that rejected him. Carlos Martinez's widow denied justice because Vivian signed an immunity deal to protect Thorne's empire. No, there was no other way. She chose this path. I just made sure everyone could see it. I drive away before the light in her window goes dark. The media frenzy intensifies as the hearing approaches. Every outlet in the country wants the story. But more than the story, they want the mystery. Who is Arthur Brennan? The fake identity is holding barely. Daniel fields questions with practiced evasion. Our legal advisor prefers to remain anonymous. This case is about the victims, not about him. But the press digs deeper. Background checks, property records, court filings. They're getting close. I watch the coverage from my motel room surrounded by case files and legal briefs. The Chiron on CNN reads, "Who is Arthur Brennan, the man who brought down a judge?" Daniel Call's voice tight. They're digging hard, Edmund. How long can we keep this up? Until December 15th. I say. After that, it won't matter. The truth will be public record. Outside the courthouse, protesters gather. Signs demanding Vivian's removal. Chants echoing through the December cold. Public opinion polls show 73% support for impeachment. The empire is collapsing, and the spectators are cheering. I feel no satisfaction. Only a hollow ache where hope used to be. Eleanor calls 5 days before the hearing. Her voice is calm, but I hear the weight behind it. Final preparation. Edmund, you'll testify first. They'll ask about your credentials, your expertise, your involvement in the case. You'll need to answer honestly. I will, I say. I'll reveal everything. Shadow Commissioner, legislative architect, her father. There's a long pause. Then, Edmund, you understand what this will cost you. Not just your anonymity, your reputation, your legacy. The narrative will be brutal. Vengeful father destroys daughter's career, absent parent resurfaces to ruin child. They won't see the corruption you exposed. They'll see a family tragedy. Let them see what they want, I reply. I know what I did. I know why I did it. And I know the lives we saved. Including hers, the question hangs in the air. I close my eyes, picturing Vivian at 10 years old, reading legal briefs at the kitchen table, her face lit with curiosity and determination. Then I picture her now alone in her condo, abandoned by everyone who used her. I hope so, I whisper. Eleanor's voice softens. Once you walk into that hearing room as yourself, there's no going back. Eleanor the First disappeared 22 years ago. There was never a way back. December 14th. The night before the hearing. I sit on the edge of the motel bed, the same worn briefcase open beside me. Inside, the original legislative drafts in my handwriting. The classified memos with my signature. The shadow commissioner files that prove everything. Tomorrow, I walk into that hearing room. Not as Arthur Brennan, the anonymous advocate. Not as the shadow commissioner, the hidden architect. But as Edmund Penhaligon. A father who failed. The hearing begins at 9. Before I reveal what happens when Edmund steps into that hearing room, I need to know on a scale of 1 to 10. How curious are you about Vivian's reaction when she hears his name? Drop your number in the comments. It helps me know you're still here with me. Also, please note the story ahead blends some fictional elements for dramatic and educational purposes. If that's not what you're looking for, feel free to pause here and find something else. I walk through the Capitol doors for the last time as a nameless man. The Goodwill windbreaker is back at the motel. In its place, the suit I kept for 22 years. Charcoal gray. The kind I used to wear in Senate meeting rooms when I was still Edmund Penhaligon, architect of law. The hearing room is larger than any courtroom I've seen. 12 legislators sit at an elevated bench. Cameras line the back wall. Every seat is filled. Legal observers, victim families, journalists with laptops, open citizens drawn by the spectacle. The air hums with anticipation. Vivian sits at the defendant's table with an attorney whose hourly rate probably matches a month of Mike Crawford's disability checks. She's wearing a black suit, hair, pulled back posture, rigid. Professional armor. Her eyes find me the moment I step through the door. I see the recognition flicker across her face. The hunched homeless man is gone. In his place, the father she hasn't seen in 22 years, standing straight in the suit she might remember from childhood photographs. For a moment, her mask slips. I see fear. Then anger slams down like a gate. I walk to the front row, sit, wait. The gavel falls at 9. Please raise your right hand. I stand. The oath is familiar words I've heard in 1,000 courtrooms. I swear to tell the truth. The whole truth. Nothing but. The committee chair, a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair, leans forward. Please state your full name for the record. Edmund Charles Penhaligon. The gallery erupts. Penhaligon. Same name as the judge. Whispers cascade through the room like a wave. Cameras flash. The chair's gavel pounds 3 times before order returns. And your relationship to the person under investigation, I meet Vivian's eyes across the room. Gray like mine. Furious. Judge Vivian Penhaligon is my daughter. Chaos. The gavel pounds again. Vivian stares at me, jaw tight, hands flat on the table. She knew this was coming, but hearing it spoken aloud in front of the world is different. The chair waits until silence falls. Mr. Penhaligon, please describe your professional background. I am an honorary shadow commissioner of the Federal Judicial Ethics Council. Previously, I was lead architect of the 2003 Civil Order Act and advisor on judicial reform legislation for the state of Connecticut. For the past 22 years, I have worked in a classified capacity overseeing judicial integrity. 3 weeks ago, I conducted a covert integrity audit of my daughter's courtroom. Another eruption. Another gavel. Vivian's attorney half rises, then sits. There's nothing to object to. Everything I'm saying is true. Proceed with your testimony, Mr. Penhaligon. I reach into my briefcase and pull out the first document. Yellowed paper, my handwriting dated April 2003. The original legislative draft of Connecticut General Statute 5321. I wrote this statute, child endangerment and neglect. It includes 3 embedded exceptions for mitigating circumstances, financial hardship, temporary emergency, and verified childcare arrangements. The intent was to protect children, while acknowledging that poverty is not neglect. I set it down and pull out a transcript. Keisha Williams's case. My daughter applied only the punitive clause. She ignored the exceptions. A single mother working a double shift to feed her son was convicted under a law designed to shield her. I moved through the evidence methodically. Eminent domain law twisted to serve private developers. Qualified immunity statutes weaponized to protect police misconduct. Each law I wrote with one intent, each law Vivian used for another. These laws were designed as shields for the vulnerable, I say. She wielded them as weapons against those same vulnerable people. A committee member raises his hand. Mr. Penhaligon, why didn't you intervene sooner? The question I've been asking myself for weeks, months, years. I watched from a distance, hoping she would self-correct. Hoping the daughter I raised would remember what I taught her, that law is a shield, not a sword. But when I saw the Martinez case, when I realized she was protecting officers who took a life in exchange for money, I couldn't stay silent anymore. I produced the financial records. The shell company. The payments from Stratton Defense totaling $380,000 over 18 months. The timeline that shows Vivian's rulings becoming harsher, more punitive, more corrupt, all coinciding with Marcus Vane's entry into her life 2 years ago. She didn't fall alone, I say. She was pushed, and the people who pushed her profited. Vivian's face is stone. No remorse, no recognition, just cold, controlled fury. The victims testify after the lunch recess. Keisha Williams takes the stand, first hands trembling. Mike Crawford follows, voice steady but hands shaking. Rachel Morgan. Betty Morrison. Each testimony strips another layer from Vivian's defense. Each story reveals the pattern, laws, twisted lives, ruined, vulnerable people targeted. Then, Carlos Martinez's widow takes the stand. Her voice breaks as she describes watching the dashcam footage of her husband's death. Judge Penhaligon said the officer acted within policy, she whispers. But my husband is dead, and no one answered for it. Throughout it all, Vivian sits motionless. No tears, no reaction. Her attorney objects sporadically, but the objections are overruled. The evidence is overwhelming. I watch my daughter and see nothing. No remorse. No recognition of the harm she caused. Just a judge who built an empire on broken lives and is now watching it collapse. At 5 minutes past noon, the chair clears her throat. The committee calls Marcus Vane. Vivian's head snaps up. Marcus enters the chamber from the side door. Gray suit, face, pale eyes fixed on the floor. He walks to the witness stand without looking at Vivian, without acknowledging her. The man who shared her bed, who guided her corruption, who built the empire beside her, now the prosecution's star witness. Vivian stares at him. Her mask cracks, just for a second. I see the betrayal, the fury, the realization that she is completely alone. Marcus raises his right hand and swears to tell the truth. Marcus's testimony begins with a question I already know the answer to, but hearing it spoken aloud still feels like watching a building collapse in slow motion. Mr. Vane, please describe your relationship with Judge Penhaligon. He shifts in his seat. His eyes flicker toward Vivian, then away. We were romantically involved for approximately 2 years, and professionally, how I advised her on certain cases in which my office had an interest. The prosecutor leans forward. Did you ever discuss financial arrangements with Judge Penhaligon? Marcus hesitates. The silence stretches. Then, yes, I facilitated payments from Stratton Defense Solutions through a consulting company. Judge Penhaligon received compensation for favorable rulings. The gallery erupts. The gavel pounds. Vivian's hands clench into fists on the table. Her jaw tightens. For the first time since this hearing began, I see her mask slip. Not remorse. Fury. She's staring at Marcus like he's a stranger. Did Judge Penhaligon know the source of these payments? Yes, Marcus says quietly. She knew. Vivian's attorney tries to discredit him on cross-examination. You're testifying to save yourself, aren't you, Mr. Vane? Immunity in exchange for betrayal? Marcus meets the attorney's eyes. I'm testifying because it's the truth. The forensic accountant takes the stand next. Numbers don't lie. Charts don't deceive. The evidence is clinical, methodical, devastating. Judicial Excellence Consulting, LLC, a shell company, $380,000 transferred from Stratton Defense Solutions over 18 months. Each payment made within 2 weeks of a favorable qualified immunity ruling. The accountant displays a timeline. On one side, Vivian's rulings. On the other, payments into accounts linked to her. The correlation is undeniable. Quid pro quo, clear as daylight. These deposits coincide with significant luxury purchases. The accountant explains. A BMW lease. An $85,000 condo remodel. A European trip. each purchase funded by blood money. I watch the committee members take notes. Watch Vivian stare at the table, refusing to look at the charts that condemn her. When they call Helen's name, I stop breathing. She walks to the stand with the same calm grace she's carried for 35 years. But I see the weight in her shoulders, the exhaustion in her eyes. Mrs. Penhaligon, please describe your relationship with Edmund Penhaligon. He is my husband, Helen says. We've been married 35 years, separated for 22. Why did he leave? Helen's voice steadies. To protect us. Edmund made enemies through his legislative work, people who wanted to silence him. He believed if he stayed, Vivian and I would be targeted. So he disappeared from public life. But he never disappeared from our lives. The prosecutor produces a folder. Inside, photocopies of 412 checks, one for every month of the past 22 years. Every month, Helen says, voice breaking, he sent a check. And every check came with a note. She picks up one at random and reads, "Is she safe? Is she healthy? Does she remember me?" Another, "Tell her I love her. Don't tell her it's from me. She needs to stay angry at me, not weak for me." Another, "I saw her name in the paper today. She graduated law school. I wanted to be there. Tell her I'm proud. Don't tell her I said so." The gallery is silent. Even the reporters have stopped typing. Helen's tears fall freely now. "He never stopped being her father," she whispers. "He just couldn't be it out loud. And it killed him every single day." I stare at the floor, unable to watch, unable to breathe. "My daughter is brilliant," Helen continues, "ambitious, strong-willed. But somewhere along the way, she got lost. Edmund tried to guide her back from a distance. When guidance failed, he did the only thing left. He held up a mirror. Helen turns to face Vivian. Our daughter is crying now, shoulders shaking, face buried in her hands. "My sweetheart," Helen says softly, "your father loves you. He always has. This isn't revenge. This is redemption." After Helen steps down, the chamber is silent for a long moment. Then someone in the back row begins to clap. Slowly. One pair of hands, then another. Within seconds, the entire gallery is on its feet. Keisha Williams, Mike Crawford, Betty Morrison, Rachel Morgan, the Charter Oak residents who came to watch justice be served. They're not applauding for vengeance. They're applauding for truth. Vivian looks up, tears streaming down her face, and sees them. The people she hurt. The lives she destroyed. All of them standing applauding the man who stopped her. I don't move. I don't applaud. I just watch my daughter break. The chair calls a brief recess. When the hearing resumes, Vivian's attorney stands. "Your Honor, I call Judge Vivian Penhaligon to the stand." Vivian leans toward her attorney and whispers something. He frowns, leans closer. They confer for a moment. Then he straightens. Judge Penhaligon invokes her Fifth Amendment right. She will not testify. The attorney delivers a brief closing argument. "My client is a demanding judge, a strict judge. But the prosecution has not proven corruption beyond a reasonable doubt. Severity is not the same as criminality. No one believes it. The evidence is too overwhelming. The testimony too damning. Vivian's silence too loud." At 5 o'clock, the chair gavels the hearing to a close. This committee will recess for 48 hours to deliberate. We will reconvene Wednesday morning at 9 to deliver our recommendation. 48 hours. In 2 days they will vote, and my daughter's fate will be decided. Wednesday morning. The gallery is packed again, but the energy has shifted. The tension of the hearing has given way to something heavier. Anticipation mixed with dread. I sit in the second row, no longer a witness. Just a father watching his daughter's fate being decided by 12 legislators who will never understand what this cost. Vivian sits at the defendant's table. Her attorney is beside her, but she looks utterly alone. Her suit is black today, appropriate for a funeral. And in a way, that's what this is. The chair gavels the room to order. This committee has completed its deliberations. We will now deliver our findings. The room falls silent. We pay Turixia. By unanimous vote, this committee finds Judge Vivian Penhaligon guilty of judicial misconduct, accepting bribes, obstruction of justice, and civil rights violations committed under color of law. Vivian doesn't move. Her hands remain flat on the table. Her face is a mask. We recommend immediate impeachment and removal from the bench effective immediately. Disbarment proceedings will follow. Federal criminal charges are pending with the United States Attorney's Office. Betty grips my shoulder from the row behind. Keisha is crying. Mike Crawford's hand trembles as he wipes his eyes. They've waited so long for this moment, for justice to finally arrive. I feel nothing. Just a hollow ache where satisfaction should be. The federal prosecutor stands. Tall gray suit, clinical delivery. Justice as procedure. The government has filed charges in federal court. Count 1, accepting bribes in violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 201. Sentencing guidelines recommend 5 to 10 years. Count 2, obstruction of justice, 2 to 5 years. Count 3, deprivation of civil rights under color of law, 18 U.S.C. Section 242. Up to 15 years. He pauses, letting the numbers settle. The government seeks consecutive sentencing. Total exposure 22 to 30 years in federal prison. Vivian's attorney stands. Your Honor, my client requests bail pending trial. She has deep ties to the community, no prior criminal record. The prosecutor cuts in. The government opposes bail. Ms. Penhaligon has demonstrated a sustained pattern of deception. Testimony from Marcus Vane indicates offshore accounts totaling approximately $1.2 million. She is a substantial flight risk. The judge doesn't hesitate. Bail denied. The defendant is remanded to federal custody pending trial. For the first time since the verdict, Vivian's mask cracks. I see fear flicker across her face. Real, raw fear. 2 U.S. Marshals approach. Vivian stands. They place her in handcuffs. She doesn't resist. As they lead her toward the side door, her eyes find mine. Just for a second. And in that second, I see everything, the fury, the betrayal, the disbelief, and beneath it all, the question she can't ask aloud, why? Daniel calls me that afternoon with the rest of the news. Thorne was sentenced this morning. 18 years federal prison, 18 million in asset forfeiture. Marcus pled out, 3 years plus disbarment. The architects are sentenced. I say quietly. Now the enforcer faces what she built. Daniel hesitates. Edmund, are you okay? No, I reply. But I will be. The perp walk happens at 3 o'clock. I'm not supposed to be there. But I can't stay away. I stand across the street, hidden among the crowd of onlookers and protesters. Media vans line the block. Cameras ready. The spectacle of justice. The doors open. 2 federal marshals lead Vivian out. She's still in the black suit, but her hair is loose now, falling around her shoulders. The handcuffs catch the afternoon sunlight, silver against black. The crowd reacts. Some cheer, some shout. Some stand silent, unsure how to feel about watching a woman's life collapse in real time. Vivian's eyes scan the crowd, searching, and then they find me. We stare at each other across the distance, across 22 years, across the ruin of everything we were. I see the fury, the betrayal, the woman who feels destroyed by the father she thought abandoned her. But I also see the little girl, the one who used to climb into my lap with law books too heavy for her small hands, the one who asked me why words mattered so much, the one I've been trying to save since the day I walked away. The marshals guide her toward the transport van. She doesn't look away from me until the door closes. I stand there long after the van is gone, long after the crowd disperses, long after the cameras pack up. I won. The corrupt judge has been stopped. The victims will receive justice. The system I built has been protected. So why does victory feel like the deepest failure of my life? The compensation fund is Eleanor's idea, but I helped structure it. $23 million in forfeited assets. Thorne's $18 million. Marcus's $3.2. Vivian's $1.8 in undisclosed income hidden in accounts Marcus set up for her. It's money extracted from injustice. I tell Eleanor must be used to restore justice. The Penhaligon-Hartwell Victim Compensation Fund is established within the week. Keisha Williams receives $50,000 and full restoration of custody. Mike Crawford gets a housing voucher, his VA benefits restored, and $35,000. The Martinez family receives $250,000 and an official apology from the city of Hartford. Rachel Morgan's record is expunged, her scholarship restored. Betty Morrison submits 50 cases for review. All are overturned within 30 days. Eleanor calls me with each update, each life restored, each piece of justice reclaimed. It's not enough, I say after the Martinez settlement. It will never be enough. Eleanor agrees. But it's a start. The media frenzy lasts a week. The headlines are predictable and brutal. Shadow Commissioner exposes own daughter. Father's love or father's revenge. The man who destroyed his child to save the law. I refuse every interview request. Decline every invitation to explain myself. The world doesn't need my justification. The victims have their justice. That's all that matters. Eleanor issues a statement on my behalf. Professional. Measured. Commissioner Penhaligon acted with integrity to protect the judicial system he spent his life building. His actions, though personally painful, upheld the principles of justice. Public opinion splits. 60% support me. 25% call me a monster. 15% don't know what to think. I read none of it. Public opinion was never the goal. The goal was to stop the harm. And the harm has stopped. 3 days after the verdict on a gray December morning, I receive a message through Vivian's attorney. She will see me, once, at the Federal Detention Center. I don't know if it's forgiveness or fury waiting for me on the other side of that glass. But I go. I've been in many prisons over the years, consulting on reform, interviewing inmates for legislative research, writing the laws that govern how we treat the people we lock away. But I've never been to one for this. To visit my daughter. The visitation room is sterile. White walls, scratched plexiglass partitions, black phone handsets on both sides. I sit at Station 7 and wait. The door opens. A guard leads Vivian in. She's wearing an orange jumpsuit, hair loose around her shoulders, looking smaller than I remember. More vulnerable. She sits across from me. The plexiglass between us is thick, scarred by years of desperate hands pressed against it. We're 3 feet apart. We might as well be on different continents. Finally, she picks up the handset. I do the same. Why are you here? Her voice is flat. Exhausted. Because you are my daughter. I am your prisoner. She says it without inflection, a statement of fact. No, I reply. You are the result of your own choices. But you are still my daughter. Her jaw tightens. I didn't feel like your daughter when you were destroying my career, when you watched them lead me out in handcuffs. She leans forward, gripping the phone tighter. I needed you. When I was 10 years old and you vanished. When Mom cried herself to sleep every night. When I graduated law school. When I put on the robe for the first time. I needed my father. Where were you? The question I've been carrying for 22 years. Watching from a distance, I say quietly. sending money, asking your mother if you were safe, if you were happy. I was there, Vivian, just not in the way you needed. That's not enough. I know. And I will carry that guilt until my last breath. I pause. But Vivian, you didn't just endure my absence. You weaponized it. You turned pain into cruelty. Her eyes flash. I thought I was becoming strong. Strength isn't rigidity, I say. Strength is holding power lightly. You gripped it until everything shattered. Silence settles between us. The kind of silence that holds decades of unspoken words. What happens now? She finally asks. I reach into my jacket and pull out an old leather notebook. The one I carried when I was a young attorney before the Senate, before the Shadow Commission, before I became the architect of laws my daughter would later twist into weapons. I hold it up to the glass. I'm offering you a path to becoming the person you could have been. She stares at the notebook. I'm listening. 3 conditions, I say. If you do them, I will visit you every month. I will bring law books, case files, whatever you need. We'll rebuild what was lost. Slowly. Carefully. I open the notebook. Condition 1. Complete truth. You will write down every case where you ruled unjustly, every person you harmed. They'll be contacted. They'll be offered restitution. That's accountability. She nods slowly. Condition 2. No special treatment. You will accept your sentence. No appeals based on technicalities. You will serve your time like anyone else who broke the law. Experience the system you ran from the other side. That's equity. Another nod. Condition 3, service through law. Become a jailhouse lawyer. File motions. Research appeals. Help the people in here who can't afford lawyers. You used law to harm Vivian. Now use it to heal. That's redemption. She's quiet for a long time. Then, and you'll come every month, without fail. We'll work together. And maybe somewhere in that work we'll find each other again. She sets the phone down, closes her eyes. When she picks it back up, her eyes are wet. I hate you for this. I hate that you're right. I hate that I have to do this. She pauses. But I hate who I became more. She asks the guard for paper and a pen. Her hand trembles as she picks up the pen, then steadies. She writes slowly, carefully. When she holds the paper up to the glass, I read, Case number 1, Keisha Williams. Charge child endangerment. Sentence 6 months suspended. Harm caused, threatened custody, emotional trauma, employment jeopardy. I watch my daughter take the first step on a very long road. It's not redemption. Not yet. Not even forgiveness. But it's a beginning. Epilogue, January 2034. 8 years is a long time. Long enough to change. Long enough to heal. I'm 73 now. My hair is white, but I still make the drive every month. I've never missed a visit in 8 years. Vivian is 40. Her hair is graying at the temples. Her face is softer than it was 8 years ago. The hardness that defined her as a judge has been worn away by time and work, and the slow, painful process of rebuilding a life from rubble. We sit at a table in a common room, now minimum security guards watching from a distance. I helped another case this week, she says. A woman wrongly convicted on drug charges. We found an error in the search warrant. How many is that now? She smiles. A real smile. 127 cases assisted, 34 sentences reduced, 3 full exonerations. They ask me sometimes, reporters, legal scholars, if I would do it differently. If I had stayed 22 years ago instead of vanishing to protect her. The answer is, I don't know. But I know this law isn't about perfection. It's about correction. When the system breaks, you fix it. even when the breaking is personal. Even when the person breaking the law is the person you love most in the world. My daughter isn't fully redeemed. She has 14 more years to serve. 14 more years of helping other inmates navigate a system she once corrupted. But she's on the path, and every month I walk beside her. I leave the prison as the sun begins to set. I drive through Hartford, past the courthouse where Vivian once sat in judgment, past Charter Oak Park where Mike Crawford used to sleep, and then I see it a new building with a sign out front, Penhaligon Hartwell Legal Aid Center. Eleanor opened it 6 months ago, funded by the compensation money, staffed by young attorneys who believe law should be a shield, not a sword. I pull over, sit in the car, stare at the sign. 22 years ago, I walked away to protect my family. 8 years ago, I destroyed my daughter's career to protect the law. And now, here in this building with our names on it, maybe both choices find their meaning. The path is long, the work is hard, and we're not done walking it. But we're walking it together. And sometimes that's enough. After everything I've been through, there's something I need to share. Don't be like me. Don't wait 22 years to face the people you love. Don't let fear keep you silent when speaking up could save someone, even if that someone is your own child. Family betrayal cuts deeper than any courtroom verdict. When I watched Vivian led away in handcuffs, I realized the worst family betrayal wasn't what she did to those victims. It was what I did to her by disappearing. The deepest family betrayal was choosing pride over connection, silence over conversation. I'm an old man now, and like many grandpa stories you might hear, mine carries regret. But unlike those grandpa stories where the lesson comes too late, I still have time. These aren't the grandpa stories I imagined telling: no weddings, no grandchildren, just a glass partition and legal briefs. But they're the stories we have. My personal belief: God gives us second chances, even when we don't deserve them. He gave me mine in that visitation room. Here's what I learned. Law can correct systems, but only love can heal people. Justice without mercy is just another form of cruelty. And sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself. If this story moved you or reminded you to reach out to someone you've been avoiding, share it. Leave a comment. Subscribe to hear more stories like this one. Thank you for staying with me until the end. One final note. These stories blend experience with imagination crafted to teach. If these themes don't resonate with you, please find content that speaks to your journey instead. The path to redemption is long, but every step counts.